As we talked about in the last video, race and racism can have very different meanings to different people or based on the context they're in. So just to clarify, as we're moving forward, these are the definitions for race and racism that we will be using. When we say race, we'll usually be referring to skin color, and racism will be discrimination based on that race or that skin color. Keep in mind that people can use these words in different ways, but when we're talking, this is usually what we'll mean when we say race or racism. In our world, we are put into groups all the time. Pause and think about this for a moment. What are some groups that you are in daily life? Some examples of groups that we're put into include sports teams, schools, friend groups, families, and political parties. Now, pause and think. How do you feel when you're part of a group? Discuss this. If your answer was that you feel good and safe when you're in a group, that makes sense because science has shown that being in groups actually makes you feel good. According to edwardlowe.org, neuroscience research shows that when people are accepted into a trusted group, their brains release oxytocin, a feel-good hormone. However, being in groups can also make you reject people who are not in your group. This is called in-group out-group phenomenon. An in-group out-group phenomenon is when people are treated differently based whether or not they are in a particular group. This goes back to ancient times when people lived in groups. And back then, humans had to stay with their groups because, for one thing, nature could be dangerous. There were a lot of wild animals out there that could hurt you. And also, other groups which would be fighting for the same resources as you could be hostile. One example of the in-group out-group phenomenon is the blue eyes, brown eyes experiment. This was an experiment done by a teacher named Jane Elliott with her third grade class in 1968, soon after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. Jane Elliott separated her class into two groups by a characteristic that people usually don't care about: eye color. On the first day of the experiment, she told the class that people with brown eyes were smarter, cleaner, and generally better than people with blue eyes. She gave special privileges to the people with brown eyes. The next day, she switched it around and said that people with blue eyes were better than people with brown eyes. This led to actual differences in student behavior. Those considered superior, as backed by the teacher and authority figure, acted more confident and forceful, and did better in school. They also made fun of those who had different eye color than them. The students considered inferior acted more shy and did poorly in their classes. This experiment showed how one simple, otherwise unimportant characteristic was taken and used to other people and make the situation into us versus them, where one group was those who had brown eyes and one group was those who had blue eyes. Let's go back to humans living in groups in ancient times. When migrating became easier, people were able to travel around the world and see people who had different skin colors than theirs, as we talked about in the last video. Racial differences became an easy way to classify people as different and reject them as they did not seem like they were part of your group. Now we're going to watch a short video.
Deputy, I'm here. Hey, Chris, not to meet the best in the twice. Let's say you're so busy.